Chapter 23, Shadows in the Night. The night grew deeper, and Elowen, despite her best efforts to keep her mind calm, felt her thoughts drift into a restless slumber. The quiet sounds of the forest, an owl hooting in the distance, the rustling of leaves, seemed to lull her into a false sense of security. But as her eyes closed, the world around her shifted. She found herself in an endless dark void, suspended in nothingness. There were no stars, no moon, just the oppressive weight of shadow that seemed to close in on her from all sides. It was suffocating. Then the shadows began to take shape. Dark, twisted figures emerged from the void, their forms flickering like smoke, their eyes glowing with malice. Tendrils of shadow reached out from the darkness, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her in every direction. The air grew thick, heavy with a presence that felt ancient and cruel. A voice whispered in her ear, soft and mocking. "You are still weak, princess. You cannot escape your destiny. The crown will consume you as it consumed those before you." Elowen struggled against the tendrils, her hands trying to break free. Her heart hammered in her chest as she felt the coldness of the shadows tighten their grip around her. Fear gnawed at her, but she pushed it down, focusing on the lessons she had learned, the strength of her own will, the chains she had learned to wield. "I will not fall to you," she shouted into the darkness, trying to summon her magic. Her mana surged within her, but it was unstable, chaotic. The magic of the evil god from the old book, the one that haunted her thoughts, was still trying to take root within her. It raged against her control. The shadows writhed, and the voice laughed. "Foolish child, you think you can fight what is already inside you?" In her panic, Elowen reached deep, pulling on everything she had learned. The chains, the power, the knowledge from her journey. Lyra's teachings, the strength of her arcane magic, the will to protect her people. It all surged within her. With a violent cry, Elowen forced the magic back, binding the shadows in place. She could feel the malevolent presence recoiling, unwilling to be contained, but she held it, determined to break free from its grasp. Her will was stronger. But just as she thought she was victorious, something sharp struck her head, and the world around her shattered into a haze of light and darkness. The connection to the shadows broke, but she was violently dragged from the dreamscape. Pain, a sharp, jarring pain, shot through her skull as she woke with a start. Elowen's vision blurred as her senses returned. She could feel the pressure of someone's hands on her shoulders, steadying her. Her breath came in short gasps, her heart racing as the remnants of the nightmare clung to her mind. Her head throbbed with an intensity she hadn't known before. "Princess, stay with me!" It was Celine's voice, urgent and panicked. Elowen blinked rapidly, trying to focus. Her eyes shot open as she saw the chaos around her. Lyra stood in a defensive stance, her arms raised as she conjured arcane shields, blocking shadowy tendrils that lashed out from the ground. Sir Aldrich was also on guard, his sword raised high as he deflected the same shadows, the blade glowing with magical energy. Elowen's breath caught in her throat as the realization hit. The tendrils weren't just part of the dream, they were real, and they were coming from her. The black shadows seemed to pulse, growing stronger and more aggressive as they slithered out of her body. Her own magic was out of control. It was consuming her, just as the voice in the dream had warned. She could feel her own power twisting and turning, and for a moment it seemed like the shadows would overtake them all. "Elowen!" Lyra shouted, her voice strained as she conjured another arcane barrier to protect them. "Fight it! You have to fight it!" Elowen staggered to her feet, disoriented, as the shadows continued to erupt around her. She could feel the book's influence, the dark god's presence, trying to pull her deeper into its thrall. But this time she was ready. "No!" she screamed, her hands outstretched. She focused on the knowledge she had gained, the power she had learned to wield. The chains. They were hers to command. She was stronger now. The will to protect her kingdom, her people, her family, everything she held dear, gave her strength to break free from the darkness. The shadows recoiled as Elowen called upon her magic, binding the tendrils, forcing them back with a surge of raw energy. Her body felt like it was on fire, the magic searing through her veins, but she held on, pushing the darkness away. The tendrils shrieked in frustration, writhing as they were pulled back into her. vanishing with a violent burst of light. Silence fell over the camp, heavy and suffocating. Elowen, Celine's voice was soft, but filled with concern. She rushed to the princess's side, her hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You did it. You fought it off." Elowen's knees gave out beneath her, and she collapsed to the ground, breathless. She felt like she had been torn apart and put back together, but there was a strange sense of relief. The shadows were gone, for now. Lyra approached cautiously, her eyes narrowing in thought. "That was powerful," she said, "but dangerous. If you cannot control this magic, we'll be facing more than just shadows next time." "That thing wants to consume you, Elowen. You have to stay vigilant." "I will," Elowen said through gritted teeth, her voice shaky but determined. "I'll learn to control it." Sir Aldrich stood at the perimeter, his sword still raised in readiness. "Is it over?" his voice low. "For now," Lyra replied, her gaze fixed on Elowen. "But we must move quickly. The seer awaits, and there is no time to waste. Every moment we delay gives this darkness more power." Elowen nodded, taking a deep breath. She had survived this night, barely, but it was only a matter of time before the darkness returned. She couldn't afford to falter again. "We leave at dawn," Elowen said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. "And we will get to the sacred grove. We will find the answers." And with that, the group, though shaken, prepared to continue their journey. Elowen knew the path ahead would be treacherous, but the shadows had revealed their hand. Now it was her turn to play the game.